Here at the Munich Security Conference, the talk has all been about Russian intentions and Russian plans, possibly for a war with NATO in the years to come. We caught up with the head of Estonian Intelligence, Kaupo Rosin. His service has been putting out many of the reports that are being discussed here, and we asked him a few of the questions about where the intelligence came from and what his expectations are for NATO to do about it. Kaupo Rosin, you're the source, or your intelligence service is the source of many of the worries that have been expressed here in Munich about Russian intentions long-term. Do you feel that Russia wants or will want or is planning for a war with NATO?
Russia is fulfilling its long-term ambitions at the moment, from which Ukraine is just the first step if it's successful in Ukraine. The longer-term ambition is to recreate or restructure the European security architecture, and the plan is to posture the Russian military in the future to fulfill that task if necessary. But my message from the intelligence service is, of course, to paint that threat picture for the decision makers. The future trajectory of events is influenceable by us. So it's heavily dependent on what is the outcome of Ukrainian conflict. If Russia is successful, it will feel strengthened by fulfilling its ambitions. But we can influence that outcome if we support Ukraine enough. And the other question, of course, is if we talk about the posture, Russian military posture along NATO borders, is that if NATO uses the time at the moment, creates realistic plans, fills it with the proper resource, then it's also the Russia threat will be manageable for us.
But Russia has suffered considerable losses, both in manpower and equipment. Are you saying that its desire to expand its territory remains just as powerful as it has been?
We do not see any changes in the Russian leadership position regarding its ambitions. So there has been no revisioning of its goals, which the short-term goals, as we have heard also from Putin in the last time, is the so-called denazification, demilitarization of Ukraine. There has been no revision, so Russia is pushing forward. It is true it has lost a lot of resource, but they're also investing a lot. The Russian military at the moment is, from manpower-wise, it is bigger than it was before the war started. So despite the losses, they've been able to invest enough manpower through mobilization or through recruitment to fuel the war machine.
You've spoken about doubling their forces on the border with Finland and also on the borders with the Baltic republics, including Estonia. Are these actual plans that you've seen, or is this human intelligence? People have spoken to you. How certain are you that what you're telling us may actually come to pass? Because we've seen warnings from a variety of NATO officials that have followed the information which you've put out there.
So our assessment is based on the information that we have collected through various methods and means we have in our disposal. This is what we know is the Russian ambition. The Russian ambition is to have that situation by 2026, which I consider is realistic. But I also see that they are already taking steps to create the new units which they have planned in that new structure. The current situation along the border is that most military units is devoted to Ukraine. So this is where the Russian resource is going at this point.
So what is your advice to Western planners, to NATO planners? Get moving, brace yourself, make preparations for a Russian attack, a land attack across the borders?
So just as a background, Russia, before any conflict, will conduct a comparison of forces assessment, for example. So it is our task for now to create realistic plans, based on a realistic threat picture, fulfill the plans with a realistic or real resource to have it in place. If you talk about the NATO posture in the eastern flank, and also sustaining forces, this all should be built. And if we do that in a proper way, the Russia risk is manageable.
2 years ago, your Prime Minister wasn't very happy with NATO. It talked about current NATO plans, or NATO plans then, which would have foreseen the loss of your territory and the hope, perhaps a distant hope, of NATO getting it back again in 180 days. Presumably that plan has changed now, has it? Because you weren't very happy with it.
Indeed, we were not very happy with this type of plans, since the Estonian nation will not survive another occupation. The current plans are more, I think, more towards our expectations. We have been also, all the eastern flank countries, but also more and more western flank or Western European countries and the US is understanding the situation, reassessing the situation, and the current plans which have been adjusted now are more towards defending the NATO borders from the first meter.
You look at NATO's exercise, Steadfast exercise, which is going on at the moment, the largest exercise of its kind since the Cold War. Are you impressed with what you've seen, bearing in mind that we've looked at British warships, one that broke down, the other one that couldn't leave port? This is in peacetime. How impressive is that?
Well, our message to our partners in the West and our allies is it is now time to invest into our military potential. It is now time to invest into our military industry.
It's urgent, isn't it? It's urgent.
It is latest time now. And again, it is up to us how this future scenario will unfold.
And the need to show strength to Russia, because I think your government has been critical about the way people have been influenced by Putin talking about his nuclear missiles. The Russians don't respect weakness, do they?
I absolutely agree with that statement. It's throughout the Russian history. It's also very strongly in the Russian psychology is that weakness is a provocation which must be punished. But on the other hand, the Russians absolutely respect strength.
What does it tell you, the fact we've had the sad news yesterday that Alexei Navalny, the opposition leader, appears to have died in prison? What does that tell you about the regime that is next door to you, the Russian regime?
Well, if I'm honest, I am absolutely not surprised that it happened. This is how the Russian regime is. This is how it treats its own people. But I also do not see any short-term real impact on the stability of Russian regime based on that. What we see, though, is that if we talk about war fatigue, for example, in the West, we also see more and more war fatigue in the Russian society spreading, which is under the surface, not very visible from outside, but it's more and more spreading, and the regime or the administration is following it very much, and it is concerned, which is for us encouraging sign. Navalny's death will add to that unsatisfaction of some people, but again, it takes time in order to have a proper impact on the stability of Russian regime in the future.
Just finally, if I could ask you a couple of words about what's going on with Ukraine. Ukraine didn't have a good war last year, did it? The counter-offensive didn't produce what many had hoped it would. You foresee a very long war here, don't you?
It depends on our investment into Ukrainian defenses. It is true that the Ukrainians have not achieved territorial gains very much, but so have not the Russians. This is currently the war of attrition, what we are. It's not a territorial war per se. So Russians are trying to push the Ukrainians until they break, mentally and militarily. Our task is, of course, to make sure that it doesn't happen by giving the proper support to the Ukrainian military.
Kaupo Rosin, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.